Be'ezras Hashem, with God's help, we begin another set of halachot. Hilchos Shvisas Yom Tov, the laws of resting on Yom Tov. We talked about resting on Shabbos, resting on Yom Kippur, and now we're moving on to resting from work on the other holidays. After this set of laws, we're going to get all the details of the mitzvot related to each specific holiday. For Pesach, for Rosh Hashanah, for Sukkot. But first, the Rambam gives us the general halachot that apply to all holidays equally. And we're back to the long chapters, somewhat. The laws of Shabbos, we had long ones, and we got a little short on Yom Kippur. And now we're back to the long chapters, just for a week. Shvitat Yom Tov goes for 8 chapters, so here we go. Let's begin learning about Yom Tov. Yesh bichlalan, as the Rambam always does, he gives us the list of mitzvahs that we're going to discuss. Yesh bichlalan shtei mesrei mitzvahs. There are 12 mitzvahs discussed in these 8 chapters coming up. Sheish mitzvahs aseh, v'sheish mitzvahs leis aseh, 6 positive and 6 negative, v'zeu pratan, and their details are as follows. Basically the same thing for every holiday. Aleph, lishbeis barishin shel Pesach, beis shalei lasis bei malacha. To rest on the first day of Pesach and not to do any work on that day. Gimel, lishbeis bashvi shel Pesach, dalet shalei lasis bei malacha. Number 3, to rest on the 7th day of Pesach and not to do work on the 7th day of Pesach. Hey, lishbeis b'yom chag ha-shavuos, vav shalei lasis bei malacha. To rest on Shavuot, not to do any work on Shavuot. Zayin, lishbeis b'Rosh Hashanah, ches shalei lasis bei malacha. To rest on Rosh Hashanah, we just had, and not to do any work on Rosh Hashanah. Tes, lishbeis barishin shel chag ha-Sukkos, yud shalei lasis bei malacha. To rest on the first day of Sukkot, coming up very soon, and not to do any work on Sukkot the first day. And Yud Aleph, Lishbeis Bashmini Shel Chag, Yud Beis, Shlei Lasis Bei Malacha. At the end of Sukkot, we have what's called Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day, a separate holiday. You also have to rest on that day, and no doing work. Ubir Shvisas Yomim Elu, B'Parakim Elu. The explanation of what it means to rest on these days is coming in the next 8 chapters. I don't have the regular Rambam that I use. I have to bring the next book. So I'm using today the Dvar Malchus, and if you see some variance in the text, just try to keep following along. Perek Rishon. Chapter 1, Halacha Aleph. Sheishes Yamim Ha'ilu She'asaran HaKasav Ba'asiyas Malacha. These 6 days, which the Torah forbids us to do work on them, Shehein, which are Rishon U'Shvi Shel Pesach, V'Rishon U'Shmini Shel Chag HaSukkos, the 1st and 7th day of Pesach, the 1st and 8th day of Sukkot, U'B'Yom Chag HaShavuos, U'Be'echad L'Chedesh HaShvi, and on the day of Shavuot, and the 1st day of the 7th month, which is Rosh Hashanah, Heina Nikrayin Yamim Tovim, are called in Halacha good days, Yom Tov. Shvisas kulan shava. The way we rest on these days is the same on every day. Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Pesach, it's all the same. She'nasurim b'chol malechas aveda. What is the prohibition? The prohibition is to do any work that's called work. Chutz mi malacha she letzerech achila, with the exception of work that's for the needs of food. Shene'emar, No, Yom Kippur is like Shabbos. We saw the other day, much stricter. But a regular Yom Tov, most work is forbidden. Any work for food is permitted. Shene'emar, as it says, Ach asher ye'achel l'chol nefesh v'goymer. That's the verse here on the screen. I couldn't get the proper zoom as I usually get, but it says over here, Kol malacha lo ye'aseh bahem. No work shall be done on these days. Ach, with the exception, however, asher ye'achel l'chol nefesh, things which are eaten by the soul, hu levado ye'aseh lachem. That can be done for you. Now, it's not so simple that anything for food is permitted. We're going to see over this chapter that there's 4 conditions. 4 conditions to permit melechet ochel nefesh. First of all, it has to be for food. Building is not for food. Writing is not for food. It has to be for food. Second of all, it has to be something which can't be done before. So for example, cutting wheat, you can't say, oh, it's for food. Yeah, but cutting wheat you could do yesterday. You don't have to do it today. Number 3, it has to be for that day. You can't cook a cholent and say, I'm going to have it tomorrow, even though it's for food. But it has to be for that day, and also has to be for a Jew. Not for Goyim and not for animals. You can't cook on Yom Tov only for a Jewish person. But that's the basic definition of this entire chapter. Melechas oichel nefesh. Food, work done for food is allowed on Yom Tov. It says that Rambam Halacha Beis kol hashovis mimelechas aveda be'echad mehan. Anybody who rests from laborious work on one of these days of Yom Tov, harekiya mitzvah saseh, he has fulfilled a positive commandment. Sherei nemer behen shabbosayin. Because on all the holidays it says the word Shabbosin, which means Klamar Shvois, rest. If you rest, you did a positive mitzvah. But if you do on any of the days of holiday work that's not for food necessities, let's say you built something or you destroyed something or you wove a garment, those are all not food related things. Harei bitel mitzvah saseh v'avar alei saseh. So you've done both. You've canceled the fulfillment of a positive commandment, and you've transgressed the negative commandment. Shneimar, as it says, Kol malachas avodah lo yisasu, Kol malacha lo yaseh bahen. 2 separate verses. No laborious work you can't do on them, and you also can't do any work on the holidays. If you did work and people were watching you and they warned you, like min haTorah, you get biblical lashes. Shabbos, you get stoned to death. It's very strict. Yom Tov, you only get lashes. But it's still biblically forbidden. Halacha Gimel, says the Rambam, a very important difference between holidays and Shabbos. Remember on Hilchot Shabbat we learned that there's avot malachot and tuldot, fathers and children. The fathers are the 39 main categories of labor. So on Shabbos, if you do a number of avot malachot, a number of different primary labors, you get punished for each one individually. But on Yom Tov, we don't say that. If you do a bunch of avot malachot on Yom Tov, bahasra achas, under one warning, kigoin shazara, ubana, v'sasar, v'arag, bahasra achas, on one warning, you went ahead and you planted on Yom Tov. You destroyed something, you built something, and you wove something. Ein leloika ala achas. We only give you one set of lashes. Why? Chiluk malachas l'Shabbos ve'in chiluk malachas l'Yom Tov. We have a principle. The difference between different works only applies on Shabbos. It doesn't apply on holiday. On holiday, it's all considered to be one violation of the holiday. So you only get one punishment. Halacha dalet. Kol malacha shechayavin aleh b'Shabbos. Any work for which you would be liable for death penalty on Shabbos, im asa yisa b'Yom Tov. If you did it on holiday, not for food necessities, loika, you get lashes. Chutz min ha'itza mirshus l'rshus v'ha'havara. With 2 exceptions. Carrying from domain to domain is totally permitted on Yom Tov, and making a fire. Because since, the sages said, since we're anyways permitting you to carry on holiday, for food, you can carry spices from one home to the other, some challah from one home to the other. Once it's permitted for food, we're also going to allow you to carry not for food necessities. The Rambam will soon explain in the coming halachas why that is. It's because of Simchat Yom Tov. If a person cannot carry around on holidays, so he's going to feel like he's tied down and not going to have as much joy. Lefichach, therefore, mutar b'Yom Tov lahaitzi katan sefer Torah mafteach v'chayetze ba'ilu. On holiday, it's allowed to carry a child, a Torah scroll, a key. These are all not food-related things. You can carry them v'chayetze ba'ilu mirshus l'rshus, from one domain to another. V'chein mutar lahavir. It's also permitted to make a fire, even if it's not under a pot. Even if it isn't for food. Say you're making a bonfire to heat up, it's okay, because since we permitted you to make a fire for food, you can also make a fire not for food. Ush'ar malachos, but any other labors, kol sheyesh b'it tzarech achila, if there's a direct need for food from it, mutar, it's permitted. Shchita, va'afiyah, v'lisha, like slaughtering an animal, baking bread, kneading a dough, v'chayetze, and anything similar. But if there is no direct necessity for food from this work, asr, it's forbidden. Like writing, weaving, building, anything like it, those are all forbidden on holidays. Now the Rambam goes to the other condition I told you before. Number 2, it can't be done before. What does that mean? Says the Rambam malacha hey. Kol malacha. Any work she'efshar lehe'asos me'erev Yom Tov, which could be done before holiday starts. V'lo yiyeh ba hefsed v'lo chisaron im nases mi ba'erev, and it won't cause any loss or lack if it was done the day before. Asru chachamim lases oisa b'Yom Tov afal pishi letzerech achila. The sages forbade you to do it on holiday, even if it does have a need for food, because you could have done it yesterday. Why did they do that? So what's wrong? You did it yesterday, you do it today. Who cares? Why did they forbid this matter? They made a decree. A person will purposely leave work that he could have done yesterday, he'll leave it for the holiday. And then he's going to spend the whole holiday doing all his work that he needs to do. He's going to stop himself from having joy on the holiday and also not be able to properly eat. If he has a whole list of tasks he has to get done on the holiday. Therefore the sages said, if it could be done yesterday, it has to be done yesterday. Only stuff that you can't do yesterday, only today, that's permitted on holiday. Halacha Vav, the Rambam says parenthetically, that's the whole reason, same reason why the sages didn't forbid you to carry on holiday, anywhere you want. Even though technically all carrying could have been done yesterday. What are you carrying food from one house to another? Carry it yesterday. Why didn't the sages forbid carrying on the holiday? To allow you to increase your amount of joy of the holiday. So he'll be able to bring back anything he wants and complete all of his desires. And he won't be like somebody who has his hands tied down with no access to go anywhere. But any other work which could be done yesterday, day before holiday, since there's actual work involved, not just carrying. Carrying is very easy. You actually have to do something. So we don't do them on holiday if you could have done them yesterday. Now, what does that mean? You could have done it yesterday. You could do everything yesterday. On Shabbos, we do everything the day before. So what does it mean? Work that you could have done yesterday. Says the Rambam Halacha Zayin. Ketzah. What does this look like? Ein koitzrin. We don't harvest. V'loy dashin or thresh. V'loy zayrin or winnow. That's when you throw the shaft, and the kernels come down. V'loy bayrin. We don't sort good grain from bad. We don't grind wheat. We don't sift b'yom tif on holidays. Because all of these acts could have been done the day before holiday. With no lack or loss. You sift flour yesterday, you sift flour today, it's the same result. But kneading and baking and slaughtering and cooking, that could be done on the holiday. Even though you could have done it yesterday. But it's not the same. Everybody knows fresh food is better. If you were to do these things the day before, there's going to be a loss or a lack of taste. You can't compare hot bread or a cooked food which you cook today like bread which you baked yesterday or a cooked dish which you baked yesterday. You cannot compare meat that was slaughtered today to meat that was slaughtered yesterday. It's less fresh. And the same applies to all similar things. Same thing with accessories for food, which could cause a loss if you do them the day before. We could do them on the holidays. For example, grinding spices. Today we almost don't know about this. We buy our spices in the store ready to go. But you used to have to grind pepper or grind garlic. And if you do it the day before, some of the taste goes out. It's less fresh. So you can do it on the holiday because that's something which would have had a loss had you done it yesterday. Halacha test, we move to the next condition. It has to be for that day, not for a different day. You cannot bake and cook on holiday something which you're only going to eat afterwards on the weekday. The only time the sages or the Torah permitted work for food is only if you're going to have pleasure from it on the holiday. If you made a big pot, you were planning to serve it all on the holiday, then you left over some food. Then, since you didn't cook it for the weekday, you can eat the rest on the weekday. Halacha Yud says the Rambam even further. A woman can tell herself, I'm cooking anyways, a meat for today's dinner. But everybody knows that a pot, when it's full, it cooks all the meat better. So even if she knows that she only needs a couple of pieces for today's meal, says the Rambam, Memala isha kadeira basar, a woman can fill up an entire pot with meat, even if she only needs one piece. Same thing, a baker can fill up an entire barrel of water. Oops. We back. Even though he only needs one jug. A woman can also fill up an entire oven with bread, even if she only needs one loaf. Because we know that when there's a lot of bread in the oven, it bakes better. A person can salt many pieces of meat together, even though you only need one piece. We're going to learn later in the 5th book of the Rambam that when you have meat, you can't just eat it straight. You have to salt it to get all the blood out. So on Yom Tov, you can salt the meat, a number of pieces together, even if you're only using one piece. The same thing applies in all similar situations. As long as part of what you're doing you need today, and it will help the process of what you need today, you can add as much as you want to the pot or to the oven. Let's say you cooked or you baked on holiday, and you had in mind to eat it today. Or you invited guests and they didn't come. This happened to me actually just now, Rosh Hashanah. We invited guests the second day. They didn't show up. So we cooked on holiday. Guests didn't come. And now you have leftover food and bread. It's allowed to eat it on the next day of the weekday, whether it's weekday or even if it's Shabbos. Because you cooked it with the right intent. You cooked it in a permissible way. Ubilvad shelo yarim, so long as you don't make a trick. You don't go, I'm going to cook something today, I'm going to invite you, and I say, you know what, don't come. This way I have food for tomorrow. Doesn't work. If you made a trick, it's forbidden. Even if it's a Shabbos after holiday, of course, if I invite you, you can come, you should come. Even on Shabbos after holiday, the sages, we really hate tricksters. We're very stringent. We treat tricksters very strictly, much more than somebody even who violates something willfully. You do a trick, there's no way out. Halacha Yud Beis. A person has the animal who is in danger. He knows it's going to die. Now, once an animal dies, it's not kosher. But if you chaparain, you catch the opportunity, you seize the day, and you shecht it, you slaughter it on holiday while it's still alive, you can have the meat. Says the Rambam, Lo yishchat oisa b'yam tif. You cannot slaughter it on holiday, Elohim kein yodeya, unless you know with certainty, sheyachel lechal mimena kazayis tzolim ba'odyayim, that you're going to have enough time to do the whole process of preparing the meat and be able to eat a kazayit, an olive size, of roast meat while it's still yam tif. Because that's all a safeguard that you shouldn't slaughter on holiday where you're going to eat in the weekday. If you're only going to eat it the next day, then it turns out that you slaughtered on holiday for the weekday, which is not allowed. The same applies to all similar situations. And now we have the fourth and the final condition, that it has to be for a Jew. You cannot bake or cook on holiday in order to feed Gentiles or dogs, an animal. Shenamar, as it says, if we go back to the verse that we had in the beginning, it has to be done for you. For you means for a Jew. For you, not for Gentiles. For you, not for animals. Therefore, a very practical law emerges, even till today, which many Chabad rabbis around the world struggle with. You're allowed to invite a guy to your table on a Shabbos meal, because you anyways can't cook on Shabbos. And you cannot invite a Gentile to your table on holiday. Because since you can cook on the holiday, you might end up cooking an extra piece of chicken for the Gentile, and that's not allowed. But if the Gentile comes on his own, uninvited, of course he can take part of the meal, eat whatever there is, because you already prepared it. This is actually, so it's a very practical issue today when you invite a Jewish girl and she has a non-Jewish boyfriend, or a Jewish guy with a non-Jewish girlfriend. You invite them to a Seder. Seder is Pesach, it's a holiday, and you have an issue of inviting a guy to a Yom Tov meal. So there's many different rabbis that give different guidance on how exactly to do it. Bottom line is, of course, if we can get the Jewish person to the holiday meal, that's what's ideal. So even if sometimes it takes bringing along a goy in a legally permissible way, so of course we look to do that to enhance a Jewish person's experience. But the dry legal law is that you can't directly invite a goy to your table on holiday. Halacha Yudalit. Behema shechetzia shel kusi v'chetzia shel Yisrael. If you have an animal that's owned in partnership, half by a Gentile, half by a Jew, mutar l'shachata b'yam tiv. The Jew can slaughter the animal on holiday, even though part of it belongs to a goy. Because even for the Jew to benefit from his part, he has to slaughter the animal, so he can say, I'm doing it for me. But if you have a dough which half belongs to a Gentile, half belongs to a Jew, so you can't go and bake it now, because you can divide the dough. Divide the dough, only take your part and cook your part. If you have members of an army, this used to happen a lot. Army used to be on their way to an invasion. They'd come through a Jewish town and then just force themselves onto the Jewish people in their homes, raid their homes, take whatever they wanted, and make them do whatever they wanted. So you get members of an army who come to Jewish homes. They come with a sack of flour to a Jew, say, make me bread on holiday. Now, if you make it, you're making food for a guy. That's not allowed. So says the Rambam, and you test them out. You see, if you give a little piece of bread to a child, are the soldiers going to care? If they don't care, you can go ahead and bake all the bread for them on holiday. Because every piece of bread could technically be handed off to a child, and they won't mind. And therefore, you can say, I'm doing it for the child, not for the Gentiles. Isas haklavim, dog's dough. Dog's dough, the commentaries explain as a reference to when you make basically what we would call today a whole grain dough. but not as fancy as today, in a more primitive way. You mixed all the chaff and the bran and all this stuff. So typically only dogs would eat it. But sometimes shepherds who would use it to feed their animals, they would also eat from it. If it's edible enough for the shepherds to take part in it, nefes b'yamtiv, you can bake it on the holiday. It's not a problem because it's considered for human consumption and not for animal. Halacha tezvav. Hamevashel b'yamtiv lekusim elebehema elehaniach lechayil. If you transgressed these last two conditions, you cooked on holiday for a guy or for an animal or for the weekday. Ein eloka. We cannot hold you accountable and give you lashes. Because technically, if some Jewish guests would roll into your house uninvited, you can give them the food that you made. So we can't really tell you that you made it in a bad way. If you made food for yourself and is left over, you can then feed it to Gentiles only if they came on your own uninvited, and to an animal because you made it primarily for yourself. Halacha Tezayin says that Rambam rechitza v'sicha, washing oneself and anointing oneself with creams, harein bichlal achilo shasiya, are in the category of food and drink. V'oisen eisen b'yantif, you can do them on the holiday. Shenemar, because it says, ach asher ye'ochel l'chol nefesh, it can be eaten by any soul, means anything that your entire body benefits from, not just your mouth. L'chol shetzarich haguf, whatever the body needs can be done on holiday. Lefichach, therefore, mechamin chamin b'yantif, we can even heat up hot water on holiday, and wash your face, hands, and feet to keep yourself basically clean, some basic hygiene. But you cannot heat up water to bathe your entire body. Mishum gzeiras merchatz, because of the gzeira of the decree of the bathhouses. We saw this in the laws of Shabbat, where we were worried that bathhouse attendants are going to heat up hot water to begin with for a bad purpose, and they're going to say, no, we did it in a permitted way. And that's a problem. We don't want to do that. If it's for your hands and feet and your face, it's okay. But if you heated up the hot water before the holiday, then it's for sure permitted. You can wash your entire body on the holiday with it. Because that decree was only extended on Shabbos, not on the holidays. Halacha Yud Zayin says the Rambam, Kol sha'asr b'Shabbos, anything which is forbidden to do on the Shabbos, bein mishum shehodei malacha, oy mevele de malacha, whether it's those things that are similar to work, or it could bring you to do work, it's not actually work, bein shum mishum shvus, or it's rabbinically forbidden, harihu asr b'yamtiv, all of those things that are forbidden on Shabbos are also forbidden on the holidays, unless there was needs for food related. Or other things that are permitted on holiday, as we will explain in the next 7 chapters. Anything which cannot be moved on the Shabbos, can also not be moved on holiday. Again, of course, if it's for food or needs, it's okay. Whatever is permitted on Shabbos is typically forbidden on holiday, with one exception. There's one way that holiday is stricter than Shabbos, and that is Isur Muktzeh. Isur Muktzeh, let's see if we have it over here. Yes. Muktzeh means anything that a person sets aside from use. He's not planning to make use of it on the holiday. Shaham Muktzeh Asur B'Yamtiv Umutar B'Shabbos. Muktzeh is forbidden on holidays, permitted on Shabbos. Because Yomtiv in general is treated more leniently than Shabbos, so the sages acted more strictly, and they said, you know what, Muktzah, we're going to be strict, Shema Yava Lezalzel, lest you come to treat it cheaply. Now, of course, we know that on Shabbos is also a prohibition of Muktzah. You can't move certain things. But as the commentaries explain, that's only for certain purposes. Remember, back in chapter 24 of the laws of Shabbos, we had what's called Muktzeh Machamat Chisaron Kis, set aside to protect from financial loss, or Machamat Isur, there was a connection to something forbidden, or machamat mi'us, because it's repulsive. Those are the only things which are muktzeh. But if you have something else which technically you weren't planning to use on Shabbos, and then you woke up and say, you know, I do want to use it, you're allowed to. On holiday, no. On holiday, you have to directly declare that you're going to use certain things in order for it to be usable on the holiday. Oops. We'll get to that in a minute. Ketzad, what does that look like? Halacha Yudches. You have a chicken, a hen, that's meant to produce eggs. You don't want to eat this chicken. You want it to keep laying eggs. Or you have an ox that you want to plow. You don't want it to for food. Or doves in a birdhouse. they're meant to grow your population of doves. You don't want to eat them again. And produce which is meant for merchandise, for business, you don't plan to eat it. All of these are considered muktzah. In your mind, when holiday comes in, you don't want to use them on the holiday. You don't want to eat them. And therefore, it's forbidden to eat from them on holiday. Until you actively, and we'll see tomorrow how that looks like, until you actively prepare them the day before, and you have to mindfully think about them, that you're going to use them for food. The hen that I have in my backyard, I don't want it to lay eggs anymore, I want to also eat it, then the next day you can slaughter it. Aval b'Shabbos, but on Shabbos, hakol muchan etzel Shabbos. If it doesn't go into one of those three categories, it's all considered to be prepared on Shabbos. Ve'ein tzarich hachana, it doesn't require an active act of preparation. The same way things that are set aside in your head are forbidden to use on holiday, so too noilad, which means something born, is forbidden. And here we're going to define noilad as follows. It's an item, it's based on the Alter Rebbe's definition in the Shulchan Aruch. An item or a utility that came into being on Yom Tov, and one had no prior intent of it happening. So for example, if you walk into your backyard and you see an orange fell from your tree. So it's a new item, it fell off your tree on Yom Tov, and in your mind, you weren't planning for it to fall. And not only that, also if a utility came into being. Let's say you had a massive piece of wood, and during the holiday it cracked. And now you can use it for something different that you didn't have in mind before. That's noilad. Something was born now, and you cannot make use of it on holiday. And we're going to spend now a bunch of time talking about noilad. Halacha yutes. The idea of noilad is that something, in order to use something on the holiday, in your head or in the world, it had to be ready for use the day before. Now, says the Rambam, choil meichin l'Shabbos v'choil meichin l'Yom Tov. Weekday is an appropriate time for something to become ready for use the next day on Shabbos or the next day on holiday. Aval ein Yom Tov meichin l'Shabbos v'lo Shabbos mechina l'Yom Tov. But if something becomes ready on holiday, it's not considered to be allowed to be used the next day on Shabbos. Sometimes Friday is a holiday and Shabbos is the next day. Or the opposite. If you have something that's ready on Shabbos, you can't make use of it the next day on Yom Tov. It's not a valid hachana, it's not a valid preparation. Lefichach, therefore, says the Rambam, Beitza shenolda b'Yom Tov achar HaShabbos. An egg which was laid by a chicken, by a hen, on a holiday which followed Shabbos. So you have Shabbos, then you have Sunday as holiday. And on Sunday the egg is laid, asura. You cannot make use of this egg. Even if the hen is meant for eating, you want to eat it. But the eggs are not usable. Because as the Talmud teaches, if you have an egg that's laid today, it was ready 24 hours before. It was ready yesterday. Nimtza Shabbos meichin leisel Yom Tov, which means that on Shabbos it became ready, and you want to use it on Yom Tov, that doesn't work. Now, I looked it up today. Hens, it takes about 24 to 26 hours between one egg and the next egg. So it's a bit hard to understand what it means that an egg is ready in the chicken's body for 24 hours if it takes the full 24 hours to produce the egg. But if you look into the process of it, the actual egg gets ready within 2-3 hours. 20 or more of the hours of an egg's preparation are on the shell, the outer shell. It's very interesting. Most of the time is spent on the shell. So technically you can say that the egg was ready, the egg itself was ready on yesterday, and the whole time in between was just for the shell. So the fact that the egg was ready yesterday is not a fitting preparation for today. Says the Rambam even more so, Ve'asrua b'chol Yom Tov. The sages said, anytime you have an egg laid on the holiday, you cannot eat it, even if it's not on a Sunday. Gzeira mishum Yom Tov sha'achar Shabbos, as a decree to safeguard us from a case of when holiday is on Sunday, that we shouldn't eat it because Shabbos prepared it. V'chein beitza shenilda b'chol Shabbos asura. Same thing if an egg, was laid on any Shabbos, it's forbidden to be used. Gzeira mishum Shabbos sha'achar Yom Tov, as a decree, as a safeguard, because of the case when Shabbos follows a holiday on Friday, in which case the holiday prepared the egg for Shabbos, and it's forbidden. So every Shabbos is also forbidden. Says the Rambam even further, the same way you cannot eat such an egg, you cannot even move the egg. It's totally muktzah. Even if this egg then falls into a pile of 1,000 other eggs, kulan asturais, none of them can be used that day on holiday or on Shabbos. Because the next day, once the holiday is over, everything is permitted. And we have a principle in halacha, the chol davar sheyesh lei matirin, anything which is ultimately going to be permitted, afilu be'elef alafim einay batel. In the moment of prohibition, even if it's mixed into thousands upon thousands of other things like it, it doesn't become nullified. Typically in Torah we say batil berov. One apple falls into a pile of apples, it's considered canceled. But here, because in the end it's all going to become permitted, so the whole pile is forbidden on the holiday. If somebody slaughters a hen on the holiday, and the commentary is added over here, it's a holiday that's on Sunday, after Shabbos, and you find ready-to-go eggs inside the hen. Those eggs are permitted. Even though typically when Shabbos goes into holiday and the egg is born, the egg is hatched, it's laid, we say it's forbidden. But over here it's permitted. Because it's very uncommon to find those kind of things in a chicken when you slaughter it. Things which aren't common, only happen at random by chance, the sages never decreed that it should be forbidden. Now the Rambam gives us a principle that relates to this topic, but is much more general as it involves all holidays. The fact that we observe outside of Israel every one of the holidays for 2 days, Pesach is for 2 days, Sukkot for 2 days, minhaghu, it's a custom. Keeping a second day of holiday is a rabbinic enactment, one of those things that were added when the Jews went into exile. Because in the times of the Bet HaMikdash, when they used to make the calendar based on the witness's testimony, you didn't know when the new month was. So Jews were in doubt when the holiday was, so they kept 2 days out of doubt. Now that we have the fixed calendar, we should go back to keeping 1 day. We know when holiday is. Nevertheless, the sages said, Minhag avotenu bi'adenu, the custom of our fathers we're going to keep. Our fathers kept 2 days, we're going to keep 2 days. So it's a rabbinic enactment. People in Israel, they don't keep 2 days holiday. Ella b'Rosh Hashanah bilvad, only on Rosh Hashanah, which we just passed. In the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, the laws of sanctifying the new month, coming up in this book, Nevayer Ikar Min Hagzer. We're going to explain the root for this custom, why this came about, and why it is that we do Rosh Hashanah for 2 days in every place. The Rambam over there explains that Rosh Hashanah is the only holiday which begins on Rosh Chodesh. So even if the High Court in Jerusalem told you when Rosh Chodesh was, the news didn't even get to Israel, because the people couldn't travel on holiday. So everybody in Israel already kept 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, even in those times. So they continue to keep it nowadays as well. Halacha Chav Beis, Yom Tov Sheni, the second holiday, don't think it's more lenient. Afal Pishu Midivrei Seifrim, even if it's only rabbinic, Kol Davar Sha'asur Barisha and Asur Basheni. Whatever is forbidden on the first day of holiday is forbidden on the second day of holiday. On the other hand, though, if you violate the second day holiday, Afilu Shal Reish Hashanah, even the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which is kind of more holy, since it's only rabbinic, bein bedavar shu mishum shvus, bein bin malacha, bein sheyatza chutz latchum, whether you violated it rabbinically or by doing an actual work or by going out of the city's borders, makinose makas mardos. We only give you rabbinic lashes. Or we put you into excommunication if you weren't a prestigious Torah scholar. The same way the first day of holiday, you cannot do eulogies, and you cannot fast on those holidays, and you have to rejoice, as we'll see in the 10th book of the Rambam, what that looks like. You have to bring the 9th book. You have to bring special sacrifices. So to the second day of holiday must be treated in the same way. The only actual difference between first and second day holidays is as it regards a dead body. What does that mean? A corpse. Chav Gimel, Ketzat, Hames, a dead person, a corpse. A person passed away on Yom Tov. But Yom Tov Rishon, if it's the first day of holiday, Yisasku b'kvurasei hakusim. Only non-Jews should be involved in his burial. Will be Yom Tov Sheni, but on the second day holiday, since it's less strict, Yisasku by Yisrael. Jews should deal with him and bury him. You can do anything required for the dead body. Making the coffin, the tfiras hatachrichin, sewing the shrouds, cutting the spices they used to put on top of the coffin. The chol kayetze was anything like it. Second day of holiday, with regards to a corpse, is like weekday. Even on the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, which are more strict, second day is considered to be totally weekday. Today, the rabbis mostly abolished this practice. We don't bury on the holiday. Somebody passed away, you leave it till after Yom Tov and that's it. But there are some communities in Yerushalayim that do. in Yerushalayim, on the second day holiday, you'll see some people burying the dead. If it's necessary, they'll do that. Halacha Chav Dalet, the final halacha for today. Shnei Yamim Tovim Elu Shel Galiyos. The two holidays that we keep nowadays in the diaspora, even though they're very strict and they're very holy, Shtei Kedushasein. They're considered to be two separate elements of holiness. The Einan Kiyayim Echa, they aren't treated like one long day. Lefichach, therefore, Davar Shahayam Muktzeh B'Yam Tov Rishon, Eishan Neilad B'Rishon, something which was set aside from human use on the first day, or something that was born, came into being on the first day, Im Heichi Neisel Hasheni, if on the first day you prepared it in your mind for the second day, Harezeh Mutar, it's allowed to be used on the second day. Ketzah, what does that look like? Beitza Shenelda B'Rishon Te'achel B'Sheni. If an egg was laid on the first day of holiday, it can be eaten on the second day of holiday. Beasts or birds that were trapped on the first day can be eaten on the second day. Something attached to the ground that was uprooted on the first day can be eaten on the second day of holiday. You can also paint one's eyes on the second day of holiday, even if it's not for sickness. It's a lower. That's another way that it's a lower level of holiness. When do we say these things? Only the 2 days of holiday in the diaspora, all other holidays, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. But again, the Rambam repeats, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, Kedusha Achas, and they're considered to be one long element of holiness. And for all matters, they're considered to be like one long day. Only for corpses, you can bury them on the second day. But if an egg was laid on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's forbidden on the second day. Anything like it. Shabbos that's next to a holiday. Even though the Shabbos and the holiday are two separate holinesses, if an egg is laid on one of them, it's forbidden on the other day, not because of the one kedusha, it's two separate kedusha, but because of hachana. One cannot prepare for the other, as we saw before. And anything similar like that happens on Shabbos is forbidden on the next day holiday, or holiday forbidden on the next day Shabbos. Even if the second day of holiday is on a Friday, and the egg was laid on the second day, the egg cannot be eaten on the Shabbos that follows it because of the principle of Yom Tov, Mechin L'Shabbat. The holiday cannot prepare for the Shabbos.